Okay, to access Configuration Management module, go to the top of the ribbon menu and click Configuration Management icon. So when you access Configuration Management module, you're going to have to first create a new baseline so that you tell the system or tell your coworkers that this is a set of work outputs that needs to be saved in this same baseline so that you can set up a milestone to make some modifications to the documents by issuing the change request and going through the configuration control board. Okay, let's get into it by creating a new baseline. Click the new baseline button on the left top side. Okay. Let's say work output baseline 1. And then what you're going to do from here is to create a version. So basically the SILKROAD ALM controls and manages the configuration items under certain versions. And when you click on the version that you just created, there will be the options provided to enable you to add configuration items from your project outputs. Okay, click the Add Item button. And among these modules, plan, requirement test, case, configuration, and source repository, you can choose specific items to include them into your configuration management baseline. Okay, let's choose some items from each modules. Let's start with the plan module. Okay, let me quickly add 2 of them. And from requirement, the ones that I made. And from the test case, the same. Choose the items that we've made together. And lastly, go to the source repository to choose the ones that we included. This one, it's locked because we checked it out and did not check it in. But it doesn't matter. Let's just choose the rest of them and click OK. You just saw that I skipped the configuration item. The configuration items, the items that's already been included to the previous baseline works can also be included to the current version. I just wanted to show you that this works, but to avoid confusion of this project, let me just skip that part. We can work it out without the previous configuration items. So let's just confirm it here. Go to the next step. Alright, so the very first step is now prepared. From this point, you have to activate the workflow of this version. Go to the right top side and click the Activate Workflow. Hit yes. Okay. Now, if you go to the Workflow button on the left top side, right here, click it, then you'll be able to see that there are some steps left to be proceeded. Starting from here, and you have to choose each of the next step from this field here, assign a certain person, and assign them to the next work. And when the review on this baseline and the version is done, then that's the point where we recommend you to move on to the next step, the change request part here. Okay, let's just say it's approved. Now it's good to go. It's good to be changed. All right, so this is a very firm promise between your co-workers that these items included here are the items that defines current status of your software development process. And from here on, after you are moving on to the next milestone, and while doing so, you're going to issue some change request on those items that you just included to the baseline and version. So let's move to the change request tab and click the new folder to include the change requests under them. Okay. Let's say change request 1. Okay. From here, you have to create a change request by clicking this button here on the left top. Click it and choose the name of the change request. Okay, this is the change request of the sample project, so I'm gonna name this way. And with the fields that has the asterisk, you have to fill them in. It's mandatory. Okay, you have to choose the baseline, the one that we made for this video specific, and choose the baseline version. And you can choose to select the change type or the reason why you are changing this. Okay, now it seems like it's ready to move on to the next step. The next step is choosing the change item. So you're going to select the change item from this version 1.0 under from the items from the version 1.0, the items included in that version. Those are the pools of the configuration items that could be chosen from accessing this tab here. Let's go to the change item tab, and from here you can add the items that you hope to be changed. Click on the button and choose the plan, and only the phase that contains the specific configuration item that you included into the version 1.0 will be shown from the list. So all you got to do is just make a few clicks to until you find the proper configuration items. Okay, and go to the requirement part. Choose the sample tool. They're included. Test case part. Choose them all. And lastly, go to the source repository. Choose them all. Saying, let's just assume that you want them all to be changed for the next level of software development process. Okay, so in this situation, what you got to do is to activate the workflow. So the workflow here is the workflow of this change request. But the workflow down here is the workflow for each and every change item. So you have to keep that in mind, that these two are different workflows. Change requests and change items. The reason why we separated in these two different ways is because from our system, the SILKROAD ALM provides a function that by using this specific workflow, we enable these specific work items, the configuration items, to be modifiable in a certain moment of an steps of a workflow. So once the workflow reaches a certain step of this workflow here, then that's the moment that a specific configuration items can be modified on the SILKROAD ALM. Let me just show you quickly. Okay. To do that, we have to activate the workflow up here. The change request workflow has to be activated because the change request workflow includes the change item workflows. So the change request workflow holds the higher level when it comes to the workflow system. So let's just quickly activate it. Okay. And then let's get back to it. Back to the change item tab and activate workflow here. Alright, the status has been changed from new to submit, as you can see. And there's one more thing that you have to do. So, when are we going to enable certain documents to be modifiable? You have to choose the moment. You have to choose the certain activity step of the workflow. Let's go to the setting button on the left top and choose a certain module or certain menu to decide which activity will be the moment of the modifiable timing. So let's just make it more simple by clicking the submit button. Okay. Let's apply it and move on to the next type. Okay. The apply button here does not turn off the window, but if you click save, it's gonna get closed after saving. So okay, next the requirement. I'm gonna choose the same status, the same workflow activity. Apply, and we'll do the same thing for the rest of the work items. Alright, it's all done. Let's save and quit. Okay, now let's take a look at the workflow window by clicking the workflow button here. Okay, from here you'll be able to see the workflow, the default workflow that we provide to you, and the configuration item list that we included into this change item tab. And from here you can choose which change item to flow through the workflow starting from here. And as you can see, the status of the the status of each configuration item, they're all on submit. So they can be changed, they can be modified by accessing different modules, each and every module that which holds the configuration item. But if they proceed to a different status, let me show you. Okay, let me just show you one that can be modified first. So once you click on the I button, you can access that document without going to each of the module. So just click on docs here to see if you can change it. Okay, as you can see, the docs is now activated. This means that it's modifiable. Okay, let's just turn it off. But with the ones that does not have status name submit, they are not accessible. Just as you can see from the message, cannot edit in current state, which means as it is set it from the setting options, the workflow status of each configuration items has to be set in a certain status, the status that you chose. This function is provided to prevent the confusions of modifications that are supposed to be done by various people and multiple people. So that's the system will systematically, digitally control the version change of certain configuration items, so that way you can track the latest version and the change flows of the items that is critically used in your software development process. Okay, and while you are following the workflows, you finally reach the very end step of the workflow eventually. As you can see, the status is keep on changing until it reaches the very end of the workflow. Okay, so now it's done. The whole progress is done. So, which means that you have already applied the modifications to your documents that are included in your change item and as configuration items. And now the change item list has been moved to the completed change item tab here. And what you should do from here is finishing the change request workflow. Go to the left top of the where the workflow icon is at, click it, and take a look inside the workflow of the change request. So from here, we defaultly give you this pre-designed workflow so that you can go through the procedures and create lower level change request, or you can create the CCB, the configuration control board, which reviews the work process of the change request and change items, so that they can whether allow the works to flow through or has to reject. About the CCB, I'll be quickly explaining after the explanations on workflow is done. So let's move on to the next step. And if you have any change orders to be made, then you can move on to the create change order workflow here, so that you can issue the tasks to certain personnels who are in charge of specific document work. So they can make some modifications on certain documents, and after that, they can finish their workflows regarding the change item. And after all these jobs are done, you can wrap up the change request workflow to move on to the next step. So there are basically, you can create the lower level change request, and you can issue the configuration control board assembly, and you can also issue the change orders to the certain personnel to make some modifications on the documents. And finally, when all the jobs are done, regarding the changes and modifications on the documents, then that's the point where when you can finish the change request workflow. Okay, let me just show you quickly one by one. Let's take a look at the create CR first. To get there, we have to move on to the reviews activity. Okay, now we are at the submit activity. Let's move on to review activity. And when we get here, we'll be having 1, 2, 3, 4 different options from the next choice. So like I said, I'm going to go create the new CR, which is underneath the current change request. And if you create one, then the new change request window will pop up. And let me just say it's sub change request. And you can also choose to change items from the list. But this time, let me just skip that part from the list. And let's quickly choose only some of them. These are selectable because they are completed. And if they are not completed and still lingering among the in the middle of change item or change request status, then they won't be selected from the list. Okay, now the workflow has to be activated of the change request. Click yes. And now refresh the screen. Go to the change request. And as you can see from here, there's this sub change request appeared. And if you go to the up downstream tab from here, then you'll be able to see the upper and lower level change request relationship. So as you can see, if you choose the higher level sample change request, then the lower level sub change request, the one that we just created, will be listed, and the relationships will be indicated with the arrow direction, the direction of the arrow. And also from the right side, show change request relation button. By clicking it, you'll be able to see the hierarchy structure of the request, just like this. Just like this. And going back to the workflow, let's move on to the create CCB part here. So basically, if you choose the sub process, sub workflow, then after you finish creating the sub workflow or sub items, the workflow gets back to its original position. So even if you choose to go to the create CCB, this after you create one, the step will be right back to where it was. Okay, this time let's create a configuration control board, which you can do from the CCB tab. So there are basically 2 different ways to create CCBs, but by using the workflow, the change request workflow, it's more natural and more fluid. So let's just do this way. Okay. Like I said, the new CCB creation window is popped up. Let's say the sample configuration control board. The purpose of gathering of the CCB, organizer, open dates, you can choose from the calendar, and anything else could be chosen. So you have to choose the subject of the CCB from here. The change request that's already been reviewed or under review can be selected from here. Let me just choose the one that is already done, click add, or you can choose multiple ones, and you can choose the board member from here. As many as you want, as long as they are included in the as participants of this project. Click OK to finish creating the CCB. Okay, now it's here. Okay, moving on to the CCB tab, you can see the created CCBs on the left side, and on the right side is change request and change order. This means, as you have seen before, the CO, the change order, could also be listed on the right side. But for now, we just created the CR and CCB. So once we go back to the workflow and finish creating the CO by choosing the right workflow, there will be a change order listed underneath the change request. Let me just quickly show you. So let's leave the CCB this way, and let's get back to change request workflow and click it again, so that we can go and create the change order. Okay. To go to the change order, we have to go through the approval activity, and then from here we can choose the CO. Okay, let's go to approval activity. Okay, since we are at the approval step, now we can choose to create change order. So as you can see, the process menu will take you to the creation of a new task. This task here on the left top side, they're the same menu that they are referring to. Okay, let's continue and click the assignment button. Okay, so let me just name it as change order task so that it's obvious. Okay, click OK. Then you'll be able to check the change order list from the CCB tab, just like this. This means that when after or during the change request process, the configuration control board will review the status of the change request, and there will be some orders, there will be some tasks assigned from them to make some specific modifications on certain items. So this whole process of workflow is provided to help you go through a fluid order of change request work or configuration management work. So if you just keep these functions in your mind, then they will eventually be very helpful. So okay, so far was a whole set of running the configuration process. First, you created a baseline to include configuration items under the version, and based on them, you issued a change request and made some modifications on certain documents. And while doing so, you also created CCB, the configuration control board, to ask them if you are going to the right direction. And once the configuration control board finds out something that has to be modified or corrected, they can issue tasks or change orders to certain personnel to make some corrections and modifications. And once everything is done, the workflow of change request could be closed, and the whole process of change request is finished, is complete. And there are some auxiliary tabs that supports you to more successfully carry on the work process of configuration management. Okay, let's take a look one by one. So in the change request tab, once you click a specific change request, there will be two more tabs that you have not experienced yet. Let's go to the review tab and what we can do from here. So this is the tab where you review the change request and the change items that's included in change request. So it's basically quite different from the CCB function. CCB is for the higher personnel, the manager level. But this part here is for those who works together, uh, who associates in similar works. So by clicking the add button here, you can add your reviews by typing in certain fields here, your comments, review result feedback, and reviewer confirmation comment kind of thing. And they will be listed along this column here. And down below the review list, if you select certain reviews from the list, then in the preview window you'll be able to see the contents even without even without getting into the specific reviews that you left. Okay, let's move on to the approval tab here. From the approval tab, you can choose a specific CCBs that's listed in the CCB tab. And according to your choice, there will be change order lists. The change order items will be listed below to check on the status of current CCB situation and how much progress has been proceeded regarding the change order will be indicated on the right side. So, including all this information that is suggested from the functions of change requests, you'll be able to finish your change request job very smoothly. I can guarantee you that. And let's move on to the right side where the report button is. Click the report button, then you'll be able to see the summarized information regarding the change request. And quickly move on to the grid view here. Then you'll be able to list up the change request in list view, list format, so that you might be able to be provided with more summarized view and more organized view. And let's quickly get back to the baseline tab again. Let's just assume that we just finished a long journey to change the whole configuration item, and the time has come to draw another line, another version of current work status to leave a milestone for your software development process. In that situation, all you got to do is just create another version by clicking the same baseline, right click on it, create a new version. Let's say version 2, and select the version 2. Then you'll be able to see the modified item while going through the change request are indicated in different icon, exclamation icon, and the one that's deleted are also indicated this way in gray color text. So by showing you this, the system will let you know what has changed throughout the change request process, and will help you to manage the configuration items. And if you go to the right side, click the diff viewer to see what has changed compared to the last version. And you can also see the version selection among the combo box. And if you choose the rollback, then you'll be able to create another version that rolls you back to the previous version of version 2. Let's quickly click it. So if you click the reverted one, then the ones that's erased has been added again, and the modifications that's done on a document has been returned to its previous version. And so you can start your configuration item management once again from this point on. But some case you might want to update some of the rollbacks to the latest version of documents somehow. There are some cases as such. So in that case, you may have to go to the latest version button here, click on it to confirm that you would want to the rollback version of the documents into the latest version that exists in your project. And if you confirm it, then the latest version of the documents, the selected documents, will be updated to your baseline version. So basically, it's quite similar to the concept of the contrast to rollback function, but it's a little bit different. But still, the version of the documents that's been rolled back could be also updated to the latest version that exists in your project. Okay, there are two more functions to go. First, there is this function called history. Click that. Then, according to your choice, the system will show you the history of your baseline and the version history under it in a table format. So this is one of the many convenient functions that SILKROAD ALM provides. And the second and the last function that you should know from configuration management, there's this button, the copy project button. If you click it, okay, let's continue with copying. This might take some time. So now the system is copying the entire data that is included in the baseline version, the configuration item information. Okay, let's try and move to the newly created copied project and take a look at how it looks like. So as I mentioned, the configuration items added to your baseline and your version, they're all copied to this new project in test case module and source repository module. Okay, let's wrap it up here. So far was the configuration management module.